All right, the good, the bad.
The ugly.
Man, we're about to dive on into something. Uh, it's kind of close to home for both of us. We kind of got it's that time of year where these big giant bags start coming in on Rayburn, and I mean big bags, like
Real big bags.
real big bags.
Last couple of years, it's been, I guess, probably last 3 years.
Well, it's starting to happen for some other people.
Yeah.
I would say that like quite a few years ago, uh, I was doing it for a couple years, and then you started doing it, and now it seems like it's some, I wouldn't say random, but it's one here, one there, and they're starting to kind of show up, and it's always interesting to see how that plays out because back in the day there was a lot of guys that did it, but the way it's happening now is different than when it happened, say 30 years ago. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I would definitely agree on that.
So, back in the day, I don't know what's changed from 30 years to now. I kind of think I know what's going on,
Yeah.
but it's man, it's something we want to talk about, and it's something that I don't want to say it's controversial. I think we're going to get a lot of people that don't understand what we mean, or disagree.
I think it's skirting on the edge of controversial.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be. It's just what this is how we feel. Now, we're not saying we're right, but this is just how we feel about it. And I think anyone that has caught one of these bags off one of these places or however it's done, I would think almost everyone would feel the same way we do.
I would think so.
Probably 100%.
Yes.
So we're going to kind of talk about that. So maybe if this ever happens to you, I would try to take some of this advice because it is advice, and I'll explain why it's advice what we're doing. So let's talk about the good. Man, when you catch one of these 30-pound, like, so when you caught one, like your first ever, it's pretty awesome.
It's real awesome. It's, I mean, it's a feeling that you'll never get back again.
Because you know you want. You can roll up there with 2 bags. Like, there's nothing else. Like, you roll up there like, hey, I need 2 bags, not one. Because almost every time you have over 30, you need 2 bags to put them all in there.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a cool feeling. And to really, on Rayburn, there might be one now, this time, for the past couple years, maybe 2 bags a year over 30. So we're talking 300 tournaments a year on Rayburn, sometimes 200 and 300 guys fishing, and there's 1 or 2 teams all year long that bring over 30. Sometimes there might be 3. It just kind of depends on the year and the lake. But it's a feat that...
And we're talking about, like, some of these major tournaments. Like, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about, like, somebody going out there, like, during the weekend just fun fishing or anything else, or in these some kind of smaller club tournaments. We're talking about your Angler's Quest on up.
Yeah,
like you say?
Yeah, like, like a BFL, like a Bass Champs, like a TXTT. I mean, events where like it matters, where you might win a boat or something, and there's usually a lot of people out there, and a lot of people. That's kind of what we're going to get into. Like that matters, because if you do it out there with not very many people, it's not a good accomplishment. That's not what we're talking about. We're going to talk about other things about why having a lot of people out there. And that's kind of the hard part about, like, when you do it in front of a lot of people, that's the issue we're going to get into.
Yes.
But yeah, catching a big bag like that is awesome.
No matter when you do it. No matter when you do it. Tournament or not, or no tournament, it's awesome if you catch a 30-plus pound bag. It's awesome.
Yeah, and usually you're going to have some... You rarely ever do it with 5-6 pounders on Rayburn. You do it with a couple big ones, and they're usually kind of grouped up, which is very hard to find. So that's kind of the good. The bad afterwards, and this won't even be the bad. Like, people don't even understand this is the bad part. Like, they're going to get a ridiculous amount of phone calls. And at first, it's pretty cool. And you're like, oh, yeah, I'm getting these phone calls. And then you're like, after about 2 days of your phone ring, you're like, man, a lot of people are... I always do it like this. If it's like if you won the lottery and all these random people that you never knew were in your family start calling you. Yeah.
Well, hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Everybody's your friend once you do it.
Yeah, everyone's your friend. And it doesn't seem like that until, like, later you're like, man, I hadn't heard from that guy in like 2 years. And like he said, told me congratulations, but then he was like, and they start kind of
prodding them just a little bit, and they'll prod a little bit, and they prod a little bit more, just digging, just trying to find, and it gets old.
Yeah, it gets old, and so you got that, and you'll have some people now that want to call about podcasts, and they want to interview you, and to be honest, like we all want, or some of us want, like we don't mind giving interviews. Like I'm at a point in my career, and I'm sure you are too, where it's not that big of a deal. We've done it before. We'll give the interview, and it's part of it. But a lot of guys that are especially the young guys, like I was when I was real young, man, I didn't want to tell nobody anything, and I have no problem with those guys. Like if they want to keep everything a secret, man, I respect that, and actually I would advise that for most guys, and so. But they're caught in this dilemma of they're trying to be nice. They want to help out, and they want to tell their story, but sometimes their story gets them in trouble.
Yeah, and like the podcast, I don't think the podcasts are a bad thing. You know, it's just the way they.
Well, yeah, they're gonna
the way the person that's on the other end of that phone call is handling that podcast, wouldn't you say? I mean,
yeah, because you can't if they ask you a question and there's times when and we see it all the time when someone goes up on stage and they're asking you questions and the guy's like and as soon as they do that, you're like, he doesn't want to give away something that someone asked, and you know, we all laugh about that, it's funny, but and I don't ever care. Like I don't blame the guy for not wanting to explain every single detail about how he caught him. I just, in a podcast, you kind of feel bad because they invite you on and do stuff like that. So these are the kind of bad things that start popping up that you're like, oh man, how do I handle this without
giving anything away, without being rude.
Right.
You know, those are the things that, and
without lying, because like I'm a guy who like I'd rather tell you, hey, I would appreciate. I don't really feel comfortable telling you this. I'm just the guy who doesn't want to lie. I'm just a guy who doesn't like to lie about things. So I'm more willing to be like, hey man, I just kind of don't want to give that away at the moment. When you like
me, I'm a little bit like, yeah, me, it's a lie, but it's almost a white lie to me. Like, because I'll sit there and I will like to keep from giving something away. Sometimes I will, like, you know, stretch the truth, won't tell the whole truth, or it may be, you know, I just tell you exactly what you want to hear, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and I don't, like, listen, I don't care how anyone wants to do it. That's fine with me. The good, like, all that stuff, that's all part of the game. Like, how big a fish you catch, it's 8-pounder, someone, you know, and it was a 7. Or, like, it's happening in fishing. It's happened since the first fish was ever caught. They, like, exaggerated how big it was or all these things. So no one cares about that. Like, that's the part, though, that they, you know, that's not that too big of a deal. But this is the part. This is the stuff that happens behind the scenes that man, let's just be honest, no one talks about.
No.
And if you talk about it, you are instantly, what's the word, man? This is the part that like people instantly, when you talk about, go, oh, they're whiners, or oh,
you get ridiculed over.
Yeah, the public lake stuff, and it's like, hey man, it happens in sports. Like everyone in sports, like they always talk about, hey, we want you to be honest. We want you to be honest. As soon as an athlete's honest, then they get ridiculed for the things that they said when you ask them to be honest. And so,
because nobody can be real. Nobody can be real anymore about things.
This is going into what kind of like, you know, like I said, the behind the scenes things, the things that happen after the tournament, after the guy catches a big bag. And this is specific to what happened a week or two ago. And me and you called it. Me and you called a lot of things before this ever happened.
Before it ever happened.
We had found the same fish. And I actually talked to Derek on the phone about this yesterday. And so I talked to him about it. And what we decided I told you about those fish. and we weren't ever even going to start on them because, long story short, we didn't like where they were set up, and it wasn't that. I didn't think there was 40 pounds there, and when we found them,
Right.
neither one of those guys in that tournament did good.
No.
Well, one of them had big bass, but we ended up doing really good in the event, and we didn't fish any of those fish, and I didn't think it was right. Fast forward to the BFL, Derek goes and catches a 40-pound bag off of him, and I called him up, and so we kind of got to talking, and we had a long conversation, and it was a good conversation. We laughed about a whole bunch of stuff, and I was kind of giving him a hard time, going, "Hey man, I don't know if you want any advice, but if you want some, I might give you some." He's like, "Hey man, like, give it to me." And so I was like, "Man, this is the things that are probably going to happen." And me and Jason kind of laughed about it because, like I said, "Man, you just put a giant target, like a bullseye,
We've
right on
lived
his
it.
back." Yeah,
We've lived it.
yeah.
I mean, that's not bragging. It's just, that's the way it is when you roll out there and start catching or catch a giant bag.
Not a big, like 40 pounds. Like
That's a giant bag.
giant bag.
Giant bag.
And so, yeah. And so we talked about that. And this was after this Bass Champs of this past weekend where me and him go, "Man, what we would do to be able, like, we knew where everything would go down, but we totally were like, we hadn't even cared about any of that stuff. So we stayed away from anywhere within miles of there. But I was like, man, I would have loved to have seen what it looked like for Bass Champs. Now, the reason I bring this up is if any of y'all are new or don't understand Rayburn or don't understand Bass Champs, we got to fill you in on like what goes down. BFL happens on a Saturday. It happened he has a co-angler, and I told him, I was like, and I don't know, maybe the co-angler never said a word, but I was like, let's be honest, guys, if you're a co-angler and you went with the guy with the 40-pound bag, you're going to get asked probably more than the guy who caught it.
That's correct.
And if you can keep that a secret of things,
Yeah.
I've never met someone who could.
No, I hadn't either.
And he does.
If you can't, great. If you can.
And he has no reason to.
That's
He
right.
doesn't have to. He can look at it as like that's the fair thing to do, but man, that's hard. But regardless of that, if anyone was out there within sight and saw that guy in that boat, they're gonna know where that happened at. And I kind of told him, I was like, man, when he told everyone he caught him really quick, now anyone that saw you there in the morning time knows where it's at, which is no big deal. But we were out there. I did so bad in the I got to check, but it was really bad. Like, it was tough. And me and you knew we had Bass Champs the next week. So we went back out there on Sunday. And of course, like I said, we knew exactly where it was. And we just kind of kept an eye on it because I was like, man, are there going to be like 20 boats? Yeah. And there were some boats around.
There were some boats there.
And you could tell they were like swarming around trying to figure out.
They didn't know where it was at.
Yeah,
they didn't know where it was at, but they knew the area, the small little area, and they just kept going around in a circle, sitting there, have no clue, but know the area, and that's what kind of hurts. Yeah, and we knew, like, we were like, oh, we knew it, and so Sunday we went and had a horrible day. Like, what is one of the worst days we've ever had in a long time? So that's why we decided to go do stuff different, So no one got to practice all week long. So no one got to practice for a Bass Champs. They have an off limits from Monday through Friday. So that Sunday was the last day you could be on the water. And even that day, we still kind of knew the boats that were kind of going around that area. But all of a sudden, here comes Saturday of Bass Champs. And I asked him, I said, how many people do you have around you? He's like, well, like 8 or 10. And I was like, so 8 or 10 other people found this spot. In a week when there's a week of off limits.
Yeah, and I'm like, they didn't find him Sunday. You could tell. And I was going, and there's a lot to that. Like, when we found him, or when I found him that first time, I drove over him and saw a bunch of them. When we went and checked it weeks later, they weren't there.
No.
So the big group that we had found was gone. So there might have been a couple in the area, like 8 or 10, maybe 5, maybe 4, and the tournament results show that, other than that one day. And he even said he didn't catch that many, like 5. And so it's not like there's a bunch of fish on the screen to see them. It's
Right.
not like there's 40 fish down there. And so you doubt anyone like graphed over him and said they found him.
Yeah.
You'd probably have to have gotten bit there, which was hard in itself because we know some of the guys that have fished around there and they hadn't even caught a limit sitting on it all day long. So I just find it odd that 8 or 10 people all of a sudden want to start fishing around a spot that really hadn't had that many people fishing around it.
Yeah, and you can't give like somebody the benefit of the doubt of saying, "Well, I've known about this spot for months. I don't know about you."
I'd been hitting it.
That's right. And any of my spots that I have found has never like it doesn't go on for months.
No, I mean you gotta make it count, especially in January, in December and January. Like it starts getting, they can meet. I've found them in January to like February. February they'll stay a lot longer in the month, but January to February, one that gets very hard to catch them in January. The timetables like to catch them is short, and then they, for whatever reason, for my stuff, they move very quickly. Like they stay around for a week or two. So I just we find it very hard to believe. And then, like I said, I asked him, I said, what would happen? He said, well, I was there, and then boats just started creeping up behind him, like around him. And one of the boats, you can tell when you see a boat kind of drive in and make a sharp turn and just kind of head straight towards you, shut down, kind of figure out where they want to get real close to you, and then they're not even on anything. Like that's the crazy part. I was like, I heard a guy caught a really, really big one, like a big, big one. And he was like, yeah, man, he's not even on anything. He was just out there close. Like
Close.
He got lucky as can be. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. But me and you called that.
That's
Me and
right.
you called we even called some of the people that we knew were going to be there. Like that's how bad it was. We're like, hey, I guarantee you this guy and probably this guy are going to be on these spots. And knowing darn well just because. And when we heard about some of it, I asked him if some of those guys were there. And he said, yeah, how'd you know? I'm like, man, we just had a feeling.
know.
We just know.
Just know.
So it was interesting. And we laugh about it because, I mean, we're used to it.
Done it.
But we also were sitting here going, we hadn't caught 30 pounds in about a year or two.
Yeah.
And
It's been a while.
there's a reason for that. It's not fun. Like it's so. I always bring up Randy Haynes. If y'all don't know Randy Haynes is probably the ultimate best deep fisherman that ever came out of Kentucky, Tennessee. He pretty much started the whole deep deal on Kentucky Lake, and he was phenomenal at it. And if you ever saw, he walked away from an FLW event, basically leading it because he was in first or second.
Yeah, I think he was leading it.
And if people don't understand, well, how can you walk away from it? I'll just give you this. I want y'all to think about something. If you were the first one to really figure something out for years, for say 10 years, and you were the best at it, and all you did for 10 years is dominate doing a certain thing, and then all of a sudden, people start, instead of working hard and doing all these things, all they did were come out there and follow you around in these events he was winning, and they weren't putting in the same amount of effort and work. And in a 1 year to 2, 3 year span, everything you'd worked for 10 years was pretty much just getting taken away from you time after time after time. And he had had enough. Really, he had had enough because there was nothing he could do about it, and he knew it. And it's a defeating, man, it's hard. And we've talked about it. Imagine going out there for 2 weeks. And I talked to Derek about this, right? I said, imagine going out there for 2 weeks and you put in 10-hour days idling out there when it's cold, when no one wants to be out there. And you find this one spot to win you a BFL. And then the next thing you know, the next week, there's 8 or 10 guys fishing around you that didn't put in any of that work. And you're like, man, I got to go do this all over again. And you can do it for a little bit. Me and you've done it.
Yeah.
And then it's it's not worth it anymore. It's not worth all that work because spots like that,
Other people start getting reap your reward.
Yeah. And you lose that spot. Like, you lose it. Like, I don't think people understand that spot is gone. And it's not like, we're not talking about like a public lake type deal. We're saying that, like, these spots, I don't care what anyone says. People might know about them as in they fished around there before, but it's real obvious that they've never caught 40 pounds off of it. And he did. Like, he figured out how to catch 40. And I'm not saying that's his spot. What I'm saying is that, like, for the next, couple months, all that hard work could pay off for him. Mm-hmm. But I told him, I said, hey man, good luck.
Good luck.
Cause it's probably not going to
draw a number.
Yeah.
Draw a number.
And it just, I'm not saying it's not right. It sucks.
It sucks.
It sucks for him. Cause, like, and then if it happens to him again, he's going to look up and go, well, man, I don't really want to go out there and work this hard when I'm going to get one tournament, and then all of a sudden all these other guys are going to show up. And I know we're going to get blasted for this. We could, because a lot of people don't feel this way, but it's the truth.
It's the truth. It's the truth. Go out there and put all that work in and see how you feel. See how you feel. See if you get to catch two bags or one bag off of it, and then all of a sudden you got a giant bullseye on your back from the time you leave the dam down there till you get where you're going, and you got somebody constantly watching, waiting for you. Okay, if you're out there practicing, where we see him, there's other people talking about it.
And give these guys credit on here. Like, most of these guys that listen to this, they've done something. I'm not saying we've all caught 40-pound bags, but we've all found fish. We've all found fish that we've, like, all these guys listen. Every one of these guys have found fish, and it has happened to them. They have found fish, and they ended up catching one, and a boat was around, and next thing you know, they're looking up going, man, that guy, as soon as I left, went right over there.
Yep.
And we all know it's public water that we can do, but, like, that feeling you get of, you're like, and darn well, like, he didn't know about them fish. That's the kind, like, imagine having that feeling with, a 40-pound bag, or a chance to do it over and over again. So it doesn't matter how big that it is. We all have that feeling, and it just sucks. But it's 100% magnified on a larger scale when it's a 40-pound bag in a tournament.
Yes,
it just is, rather than just seeing someone catch fish. And man, I feel bad. I feel bad for him, but we knew it was gonna.
Yeah, it was going to happen.
It's going to continue to happen.
Continue to happen. If it's not to him, it's to the next guy who catches 40, next guy who catches 30. It's going to continue to happen. And there's nothing we can talk about that's going to deter. We're trying to educate, I guess, a few people on.
Get ready.
Yeah, exactly. Get ready. If you're gonna do it, like, you're going to have company.
It's good. Yeah. It's going to be awesome. You're
That's
like,
right.
What sucks is you're going to have all this, like, all the great things that we're trying to let y'all know, all the great things that you see, like, holding the trophy and the check and all that stuff's great.
You're on top of that mountain.
But
you wanted to climb that mountain. You're on top of it.
There's a backside to it that gets, it gets frustrating. And that's all we're letting everyone know, that, like, kind of letting you know the other side of it. And it was cool to talk to him. He was real receptive, man. We had a good time talking, had a good talk. And he said, man, like, everything you're telling me, I can kind of see it happening now. And I was like, yeah, man. And I'm like, and I was trying to give him advice on how to handle it. And I think he's handling it very, very well. Like, he is. And I said, don't get too frustrated yet. But, like, he seems like he's got it. He's trying to figure it all out. And so I hope it works out for him. There's a part of me that's glad I don't have to be worried about it right now, because we ain't catching no big bags.
We ain't catching no big bags.
But anyways, we wanted to do this. It was something different that we rarely talk about it. Kind of talk about stuff on bass singer therapy. But I wanted someone else in my video that has caught plenty of 30-pound bags as well, and kind of has it as well. And Jason's been that guy. And just being able to talk to him for the last couple of weeks and like kind of foreseeing all this I just figured, man, why not get them on, share this with y'all guys. So I don't know. Hopefully, I won't have too many bad comments. There's no telling what's going to come out of here. So it's always interesting for me to read them. They'll probably twist our words or something. But hey, it's YouTube. I'm used to that. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it, and stay tuned, man. It might get real interesting this year.